real people who saw what shouldn't exist. Some stories are frightening because they are dramatic. Others are frightening because they are ordinary. This is a collection of the second kind. These are not legends, not myths, not stories passed down over centuries. These are accounts told by real people in calm voices, often reluctantly, because what they experienced didn't feel impossible. It felt misplaced. He saw someone who wasn't there. It happened in the middle of the day. No darkness, no fatigue, no altered state. A man was walking through his apartment hallway, a place he knew well. As he reached the end of the corridor, he saw someone standing there. A man, tall, still, facing the wall. The figure wasn't threatening. It wasn't moving. It wasn't doing anything at all. At first, he assumed it was a reflection or a shadow, but the lighting didn't support that explanation. The figure had weight, volume, presence. He cleared his throat. The figure didn't react. He took a step closer. Nothing changed, no sound, no movement. The man felt a sudden sense of confusion. Not fear, confusion, as if the world had briefly displayed something incorrectly. He blinked, and the hallway was empty. Nothing else changed. No sound, no shift, just absence. Later, he searched for explanations. Stress, lack of sleep, momentary hallucination, but none of those fit, because the memory stayed sharp, clearer than dreams. He remembered the exact height, the posture, the distance between them. And most disturbingly, he remembered thinking, while it was happening, this person doesn't belong here. This child described something terrifying. Children tell stories differently than adults. They don't frame things as mysteries. They don't dramatize. They simply describe. A 4-year-old child began waking up at night, not screaming, not crying, just sitting up in bed. When asked why, the child said someone was in the room. Naturally, the parents assumed imagination, night fears, shadows, but the descriptions didn't change. Night after night, the child described the same thing. A tall shape, standing near the door. No face, no eyes, just smooth. The child didn't say it was scary, just wrong. It's not supposed to be here, the child said. That sentence unsettled the parents, not because of fear, because of certainty. The child described where it stood. Always the same place, always watching, never moving. One night, the parents stayed in the room, lights on, nothing unusual. The child pointed. There, they said. The parents saw nothing, but the child insisted. They weren't afraid. They were annoyed, as if being interrupted by something persistent. After several weeks, the child stopped mentioning it, stopped waking up. Life returned to normal. Years later, when the child was older, the parent casually asked if they remembered the figure. The child paused, then said something unexpected. I stopped seeing it because I learned not to look. They couldn't explain what that meant. They still can't. What the dying said before coming back. People who nearly die often describe similar things. But what's unsettling is not the light, not the tunnel, it's the figures. A woman was declared clinically dead for several minutes. No heartbeat, no brain activity detectable at the time. When she regained consciousness, she didn't cry. She didn't panic. She asked a question. Why were they watching? Doctors assumed confusion, but she remained consistent. She described being in a place that felt quiet, not peaceful, quiet. She said she wasn't alone, but there were no people, only shapes, standing at a distance, observing, not interacting, not communicating. She didn't describe them as angels or beings. She described them as something closer to placeholders, forms without identity. She said they weren't comforting, but they weren't threatening either. They felt procedural, as if something was being checked, measured. When asked how she returned, she said it wasn't her decision. It was like I was sent back because I wasn't finished, she said. When pressed further, she stopped answering. Not because she couldn't, but because she didn't want to. She said talking about it made her feel watched again. What connects these stories? These stories don't share spectacle. They share structure, a presence, a certainty, a lack of explanation. No dramatic chase, no interaction, just something being there. And the person knowing it shouldn't be. What's unsettling is that none of these witnesses wanted attention. They didn't exaggerate. They didn't seek answers. They simply remembered. And memory is the key. Hallucinations fade. Dreams blur. These memories don't. They stay sharp, uncomfortable, as if stored differently. Each person described the same emotional response, not terror, recognition, as if something in the mind flagged the experience as incorrect. out of place. Some researchers believe these moments occur when perception fails, when the brain misfires. But that explanation struggles with one detail. Why do so many people describe the same kinds of figures, the same stillness, the same absence of features, the same feeling of being observed, across ages, across cultures, across circumstances? Another theory suggests the mind is filling in gaps. But children don't usually fill gaps with abstraction. They fill them with monsters, with stories. These children didn't describe monsters, they described errors. There is a final detail that appears quietly in many accounts. The feeling that noticing the presence matters, that acknowledgement changes something, as if attention itself is a kind of interaction. And once you notice, you are part of the situation. That idea unsettles people the most, because it suggests the experience isn't passive, it suggests participation. Most people who experience these things don't go looking for answers. They don't want to, because the experience doesn't invite explanation, it invites silence. And silence is where these stories usually stay, unshared, unresolved, but remembered. Because whatever these people saw, it didn't feel imaginary. It felt misplaced. And that distinction is what makes these stories linger. Not because they prove anything, but because they raise a question that never fully leaves. What else might exist, just outside the rules we rely on, waiting for a moment when perception slips? And if that moment comes again, would you recognize it, or would you look away?